This is Emperor Tigress, and I wholeheartedly believe that this is the roller coaster replacing KINGDA in real life. There is so much that went into the making of this coaster, a lot more than you're probably thinking. So to understand how we got here, we first need to travel back to November 10th, 2024. On November 10th, the legendary KINGDA at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey gave what would be the final rides of its life. Its 20-year-long legacy would come to an end on this day with no official announcement from the park and no warning to the people whatsoever. Despite the outrage of the people, KINGDA's iconic top hat was imploded on February 28th, sending the mighty coaster crashing to the ground. After the closure of KINGDA, I began to wonder what the coaster replacing it could possibly look like. Turns out, most of the roller coaster community shared my curiosity, and shortly after KINGDA was closed, rumors started swirling about its replacement. Most signs were pointing to the spinning tower coaster model from roller coaster manufacturer Mock Rides. The coaster would start with an initial launch, then launch riders a second time while upside down, then feature one more launch before climbing a giant tower. I'll talk about why this is the current consensus in a minute, so just keep this in mind. Since this tower coaster is likely to be replacing KINGDA in real life, I thought it'd be fitting to also have it be the replacement for the KINGDA replica in my theme park. So once I made up my mind, I mapped out where I wanted the coaster to go and started work on Emperor Tigress, the replacement for the legendary KINGDA. The first thing I did when building this coaster was the track work, using the rendering from ML Designs as a reference. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys, this was the hardest part of the entire project and maybe the most frustrating thing I've ever had to do in this game. The first thing I had to do was decide where I wanted the tower to be and then build a launch track install from there. I ended up putting the tower as far back as I possibly could, and even then I barely had enough room for the rest of the track. Once I decided where I wanted the tower to be, I built the stall and launch, which were both pretty easy to get right. Where the challenge really began though was the profiling for the tower itself. When I first built the coaster, I had the track go straight up for most of the tower and then swirl around it at the last second. While this did look kinda cool, the reference design had the track spiral much earlier, which gave it a much more imposing look, something that my version didn't exactly have. Not only was the track an issue, but I made the supports way too thick, so the end result ended up looking sort of off and kinda goofy. I knew deep down I could have done better, but by the time I realized my mistake, I would essentially have to start from scratch if I wanted to fix it. After thinking on it for a while, I did eventually cave. I knew the coaster would be smoother and look better if I just bit the bullet and rebuilt it, so that's exactly what I ended up doing. I tore down the supports for the tower and removed all of the track that came after the stall. I started the spiral much earlier this time and made it steeper so that the train could come back down the tower at a faster speed. Once that was done, I went in for the structural supports. I made the supports significantly thinner than before, and I'm really happy that I made that change because the end result just looks a lot better than before. The old tower looked pretty chunky, so I'm glad I found a way to make it look good. After the supports for the tower were finished, I made the supports for the launch and stall. This part was a lot easier because I didn't need to build such an intricate support structure. The design of the supports for the zero-G stall sort of form a cage around the track in the reference design, so I made sure to replicate that here. With the supports wrapped, it was time for the second hardest part of this whole thing, the station. In order to build the station and get it right, I had to think about the theme I was trying to go for with this ride and decide what I wanted the station to look like from there. I landed on making the station look like an ancient jungle temple with lots of nature around it. The main thing that made this part so difficult was finding a way to make the station look like a temple without making it look flat and boring. There were just so many ways I could take this build, so I had to experiment with lots of different color palettes and design features. A lot of the temples I saw on Google as reference photos used pillars and archways for texture, so I incorporated those into my build. I also built an additional structure on top of the main building to keep it from feeling too boxy. I decided to use a rock texture for the building with accents of orange and gold for the pillars to really make it pop. I am super happy with the way the station came out. It really does look like a temple, especially with the vines and bushes I added, which tie the whole build together in my opinion. After that, I painted the track a bright golden orange and the supports a really rich brown. I also made sure to paint the supports connecting the track to the tower in a different color because that's how it's depicted in the design and I really like that look. Then I moved on to the final step of this project, which was theming. This part thankfully wasn't that hard. It was just a lot of placing down grass and trees and rocks to really make it look like a jungle and not just, plain green. Lastly, I built an entrance sign for the ride's queue. I was heavily inspired by KINGDA's entrance sign here because it fit the vibe I was going for and it was also a nice way to pay homage to the real coaster. And finally, after months of inspiration and planning and building, Emperor Tigress was finally complete. I am so happy with how this coaster looks. That tower just looks so incredible, and I think the profiling is a lot better than before. Do I think the ride is perfect? No, of course not. There are some things that could be better. I don't really like the entrance and exit from the 0G stall. I think they could be smoother, and I think the train also takes them too fast, which does make it look a little janky. But other than those small nitpicks, I think this ride is pretty solid, and I really hope you guys agree. Now for the part of the video I'm sure most of you have been waiting for. How on earth do I know this thing is going to be the replacement for KINGDA Ka? Well, there's 3 big reasons that I think seal the deal for this being KINGDA Ka's replacement. 1. This roller coaster model was advertised to investors as being at least 400 feet tall, meaning that it would definitely have the same mass appeal that KINGDA Ka did. I mean, think about it. Who wouldn't want to ride a roller coaster that takes you 400 feet in the air? Even though this ride wouldn't have a complete circuit and may not have the best ride experience from an enthusiast perspective, it fills the void that KINGDA Ka left behind better than something shorter would with a full layout. 2. When a theme park has a plan to add a new roller coaster, they'll often send out a survey to the people to gauge how excited they would be if that coaster were to come to the park. And in the survey set out for Kings Island, a park owned by the same company as Great Adventure, the tower coaster was included, meaning that the company obviously has their eye on this coaster model and may have already even purchased it. And number 3, what I believe to be the smoking gun piece of evidence for this happening, if you look at the footage taken of the footers for this new coaster replacing Ka, they line up almost perfectly with the outline of the tower coaster. YouTuber El Toro Ryan demonstrates this beautifully in his video analyzing the construction for the new roller coaster. All of the elements of this tower coaster are perfectly depicted by the position of these footers. So there you have it. That's how I discovered and built the roller coaster replacing KINGDA Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure in Theme Park Tycoon 2. This video took a ton of effort to make, so if you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. See you next time.